like horses.
Miss Matilda, please pay more attention to your mount than the barn cat.
Yes, Roderick, Tillie replied with a sigh. Her groom was the age her father would have been if he still lived. Roderick's teeth were brown from tobacco stains, and he smelled perpetually of old hay and horse sweat, a comforting scent. She readied to mount Queenie, a somewhat vicious thoroughbred that belonged to her sister. Tillie would have never dreamt of taking her, but her mother no longer rode and suffered to pay for only 2 horses here on Long Island. Tillie's horse was resting in her stall, nursing a bruised hoof that may or may not have been Tillie's fault.
You ought to stop riding, Miss Matilda,
Roderick continued.
You've fallen once already this season, and you hardly come here to practice.
That's because Lucy is always taking my best cane and has the best horse and the best teacher, Tillie said under her breath. Roderick heard her well enough.
But I've taught you both,
he protested. She blushed. Yes, and yet she's so much better.
She listens to me, Miss Matilda, instead of watching the anthills for an hour.
He didn't need to say more. Tillie was already nervous to ride, and she hadn't even climbed on the mare. But today she must, because Dorothy was here, and Tillie had heard a rumor. Dorothy had been overheard to say a rock could ride a horse better than Tillie Pembroke. Oh, but she wished Lucy were here. Older by 3 years, Lucy looked like she belonged in a pink coat like the other riders. Tillie was merely the mirage of one. It was Lucy who would buffer Tillie from their family's disappointment when she made occasional gaffes in public, like asking the Cortland's butler how their new toilet imported from France worked. 3 months ago, she had vomited in front of Mrs. Astor at Lucy's engagement party because she'd wondered if consuming an enormous quantity of cake would absorb the champagne like a sponge. Lucy told everyone that it was the pastry chef's fault, a bad recipe with too many wine-soaked cherries. Everyone was soothed except the pastry chef, for whom Lucy found another position without a mention of the incident. At her coming-out party the year before, Tillie disappeared to the library to research the origins of the word fuliginous after her great-uncle had used it, then became distracted by a picture of a collared fruit bat before losing herself completely in the F's. It wasn't the first time she had been utterly consumed by the pages of Webster's International Dictionary. Lucy had lessened the embarrassment by explaining that her sister was quite modest and needed time to recover from all the attention. Lucy, with her large brown eyes, her perfect pale gold hair piled in loose curls upon her head, her swan's neck, was the very image of a Gibson girl. And she had a perfect fiancé, too, James Cutter, whose bloodline extended to the Dutch in the 1600s, like the Pembrokes'. In a city where the new-moneyed Rockefellers and Vanderbilts put up vulgar, showy mansions, drawing their wealth from disgraceful sources like the railroad, the marriage between Lucy Pembroke and James Cutter would be one for the ages, perhaps one of the last. It would be, as everyone murmured, the greatest New York wedding of the new century. James himself was here for the hunt, but he'd hardly ever paid more than passing attention to his future sister-in-law. Lucy couldn't ride because she'd only recently recovered from a bout of typhus. She had of late been visiting the orphans at the Foundling Hospital, a few avenues away from their mansion in Manhattan. Sweet Lucy was always looking to help those less fortunate than her. Tillie would tell her later all about the ride and how brilliantly it had gone. She would tell her how she had not gotten distracted by anything today. Roderick helped hoist her into the saddle. She hooked her right knee around the pommel, nestled her other knee under the leaping head, and fit her left foot into the single stirrup. The groom tightened the girths and balance strap, the latter to keep the saddle from sagging on the more burdened left side, and offered her the cane for her right hand.
Your sandwich box is filled, and there's a flask of tea in there as well.
Tillie unbuckled the leather box.